What does a London taxi driver do when a customer refuses or leaves the cab without paying? In this episode, we're going to find out. Also, we're going to find out when is it permissible for a passenger to refuse to pay a fare. There's a unique word to describe someone who evades payment to a London cabbie. They're called a bilker. I'm going to now introduce you to Aidan Kent, London's singing cabbie, and he's going to describe to you his bilking experience that happened a few decades ago. Before we get into this, don't forget to subscribe, leave any comments down below. Taxi drivers, let me know about your bilking incidents. I'd love to hear them. And you wonderful passengers, let me know when you think you've been overcharged. Okay, let's get into this.
So I just passed out, just got my badge. I'd been driving about 3 months. Going past Harrods, guy puts up his hand, gets in the cab. He said, could you take me down to the King's Road? He said, there's a recording studio down there and I want to be dropped off there. Anyway, we started getting into this little chat and very nice and, you know, very pleasant. He wants to know my name. I said, my name's Aidan, blah, blah, blah. Gets to the recording studio. He gets out. He said, Aidan, here's £10. And remember it back in, you know, over 30 years ago, the meter was about, I don't know, 50p or something, you know, when you got in. So he's giving me a £10 note for a 150 fare. And he said, I want to see you back here in 2 hours. So I goes off, do whatever I want, come back in 2 hours. He's waiting for me. He said, Aidan, great, thanks for coming back and picking me up. Here's a little present for you. So he gives me this little present. So I put it down beside me. We go off. He said, we're going to the Dorchester, that's where I'm staying. So then we have this, again, great little chat, and he's told me that he said, you don't know who I am, do you? I said, no. He said, I'm one of the Moody Blues. And I know the Moody Blues is John Lodge and Justin Hayward, and he wasn't them. And he said, I'm the drummer. You know, it's the drummer. And then he tells me about why he was in Harrods. He's bought this expensive ring for his wife. It's her birthday coming up. As we're approaching the Dorchester, he said, Aidan, change of plan, Shepherd's Market. So we drive down to Shepherd's Market. He said, there's a little pub there. I want to get a case of champagne. He said, open up the back of the boot and I'll throw it in there. He said, I don't want it going in the front here, frothing off or whatever. I said, yeah, no problem. Goes into the pub. He comes back out about 30 seconds later. It's a bit of a problem. He said, I know the governor. He won't take a cheque. He said, have you got 40 quid in cash and I'll give it back to you when we get to the Dorchester. I couldn't get the 40 quid out of my pockets fast enough. So gives him the 40 quid. He goes off into the pub again. 2 minutes have gone by and I'm like, what have I done? What have I done? So goes into the pub. I said, excuse me, it was a gentleman about this high, that wide, you know, beautifully spoken voice. No. So obviously I'd been built. But when I got home and I checked the little present he gave me, it cost him 25p, and there was a map of London in there, and there was a fake British passport. And when you open up the fake British passport, there's a little message saying, beware of thieves, villains and con men. And of course he knew he had me just the very moment, and he was a confidence trick, so that's what he was. But just an ad-lib to that story, I went home and told my dad, God bless him, and my dad had been driving a cab for years. And I told him that story, and he was going, yeah, because I didn't tell him the ending scene. He's going, yeah, what happened then? Big John in Surrey, fantastic, he's giving you a tenner for the... And I said, well, he ran off, it was a scam. And he went to me,
what a plonker, what a plonker.
The first time someone ran off without paying me was when I pulled up outside the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. A young man quickly limped out of the main entrance and asked me to help him into the back of the cab. He had done his cruise ship ligament in playing football in the morning. We set off towards Willesden. He was very chatty, and we talked about his football career and how he was feeling about the forthcoming operation that he'd have to endure. When we arrived in Willesden, he said, I'll pay you through the window. He opened the door, and before I knew it, he shot out like a gazelle on steroids. I had had my first bilker. I had to laugh. He must have thought, if I pretend to have a limp outside of a hospital, the driver's never going to think I'm going to run off without paying the fare. And that's exactly what happened. I fell for it hook, line and sinker. Well done, buddy. You pulled the wool over my eyes. So what do I do if I get someone who runs off without paying the fare? Absolutely nothing. Occupational hazard, write it off as a bad debt. I'm not going to go off chasing someone down the street and leave my taxi here unattended.
So what does the law say when it comes to fare evasion and passengers refusing to pay a fare? A recent FOI request from the Metropolitan Police offers guidance to passengers about when they can refuse a fare and guidance to cab drivers about what they can do if they're not paid. First of all, let's talk about bilking. Bilking is the term for making off without paying the fare, remember? Anyway, anyone running away from a taxi with no intention of paying is guilty of an offence. Fraud Act 2006, Section 11. Any person can arrest someone for bilking. However, cab drivers are strongly advised to call the police, as wrongful arrest can lead to civil claims. Laws relating to taxis date back to 1843, so many abstract offences can be committed in taxis. However, police generally become involved when the fare hasn't been paid. Such incidents fall into one of two categories. Number 1, civil disputes, and number 2, theft. Civil disputes. If a passenger refuses to pay the fare, they commit an offence. However, if they have a genuine reason for non-payment or a complaint about the route taken, then this is a civil matter. Both parties have rights, and they should be encouraged to exchange details and seek civil remedies.
It's important to remember that both passenger and driver have rights. If you think a fare has gone above and beyond what it should be, it's best to mention it at the end of the journey. Guess what? Us taxi drivers do make mistakes sometimes. Come to a compromise. It's best not to get a third party involved. If you come to an agreement, then the taxi driver will be happy to knock some money off that fare. The most important element of our job are our passengers. We're always looking to get them from A to B, not via C to Z as some people think, but from A to B in the quickest, safest and cheapest route possible. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay tuned.